Let's roll. We've turned the page a little bit here on the Out of Bounds show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone, the last two shows. And dropping in more SEC football, and the response has been fantastic. And I'm excited about it. You are too. Season will be here before we know it. And it's always fun to pontificate and speculate what could happen as far as win totals and what your team will and will not do, and how many times you'll be high-fiving on the couch, throwing beer up in the air, or how many times your team will rip your heart out. Just, boom. And that's why we love it. SEC football, college football, now is the time. We are the Out of Bounds show. We're brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. It's the Timeout Lounge, and it's on the property of Pearl River Resort. Book your stay and play right now, pearlriverresort.com, for a ton of fun. And we welcome in our friend, the Matrix Man, and everything else that he does. And it's been 3 months, so it was a good, we gave him some time off. Good for us. And Dave Bartoo joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line to preview the Ole Miss Rebels. Bartoo, what's up?
Oh, man, I picked the wrong week to stop drinking. Now, just a little shout out though. If you play golf and you're going to the Golden Moon, try to get your butt over to the Dancing Rabbit,
yes.
Please. Great combination. They'll even get you. They'll cart you over to the golf course from the Golden Moon. So it is a great combination out there. But I got a question for you, Bo. You talk about teams, breaking your heart, ripping your heart out in the middle of the season. What if your team already ripped your heart out before the season started? Does it count?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, but you can't have your heart ripped out if it's already been ripped out. So, because there might be a few SEC fans out there that feel the season's their heart's already ripped out before the season starts.
Yeah, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky. Oh,
Kentucky, dude. How about Louisville coming in their backyard? A bloody ACC team poaching the big guy from Kentucky.
You dropped his name on I can't remember his name, but you dropped his name on the show a few years ago and talked about what a remarkable job that assistant coach under Stoops had done to turn around their recruiting, Bartoo, and now Brom takes him from Stoops.
Takes him from Stoops. It's Vince Marrow.
Okay,
and now I don't know Vince personally, and I don't know exactly how much impact he has had on the Kentucky football program from a recruiting standpoint. But you and I have heard the stories a million times. He is the straw that stirs the drink for recruiting at Kentucky. And in the last 10 years, no one has moved the needle more in recruiting from where they were to where they are today than Kentucky. And if this guy's the driving force behind it, because let's be honest, outside of 1 year, Liam Cohen gets lucky and has one great year as an offensive coordinator, happens to have an NFL-level quarterback, but the offense at Kentucky is stunk the rest of the time. And it's been all Brad White and, on the defensive side, and Vince Marrow's recruiting. And you just lost Vince, and so Kentucky's down to basically an average head coach with a really good defensive coordinator and not a whole lot else. Got a really good wide receiver coach. But, so when does Brad White leave?
Oh, God, right? I can't believe he hasn't.
Right. Yeah, I can't either. But to me, it's kind of the sign, right? Because you had Stoops playing footsies with A&M,
right,
in public, right? Wasn't supposed to be public, but we know in the past when you go this far on a date and get caught out in public, you're toast. June Jones did it. SMU, Arizona State. He was on a plane to Arizona State, told to turn around. He didn't last the next season. Right? Justin Fuente wanted out of Virginia Tech, didn't think that it was good enough for him, played footsies with other programs, came out in public. He didn't last 2 years. So Mark lasted 1 year. This is year 2. and now you have Vince Marrow jumping out of the SEC into the ACC. That's kind of unheard of. And so to me, that is a huge flag that there is something more than just, that just seems to be a big red flag to me, that I think is much larger than people are giving credit for. Good Lord, Brad White with a good offensive coordinator. Sign me up for that, though.
Yeah, Brad White, for our listeners, defensive coordinator at Kentucky, and he's the only good thing going, evidently, in Lexington when it comes to football. And Ole Miss plays at Kentucky in Game 2 of the season. So we're going to do a little preview here of Ole Miss coming off a 9-3 regular season, beat Duke in the the Outback or Gator Bowl. Yeah.
Obviously, none of us had money on it because we can't remember.
No, I mean, people were just drinking Bloody Marys and mimosas just to get through it. So here we go. Ole Miss coming. They're not as hyped. You can tell we're already in mid-June, and there are teams that get the hype train and the hype bug every year, and that's fine. That's great. Ole Miss was the number one hype team outside the Blue Bloods last year,
right?
Not this year. Yeah. I don't know who it is this year, but the bottom line is it's not Ole Miss, but they still have a great schedule, an unbelievable head coach, offensive coordinator in D.C., and they just had a ton of dudes go to the NFL or graduate. So we're going to run through the schedule, do a little Bartoo's Bangers on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Ice Cold Stella Artois. All right, cool. All right, so Bartoo, I'm gonna throw out the first 4 games, and then I'm going to let you rip through those, and then we'll go 4 more, and then we'll go 4 more. And you can do your stuff: trap games, swing games, must win, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I was looking at this, and before we get into it, though, I was looking at the whole schedule just literally 30 seconds before you called. I was like, I should probably take a look at this thing before we get into it. Yeah. And I'm scrolling through it, and I'm like, is this set up better than last year?
Okay. Let's debate that for a second.
Right? I mean, is this because you got so the first real game, right? LSU at home, South Carolina at home, Florida at home. You go to Norman and Georgia back to back, but it's like so 3 of the 5 toughest games on the schedule are at home. It's almost, it's basically the same schedule as last year. But like you said, different player profile. So I guess that's where it's really going to come into play. Do you know what's the total at the Timeout Lounge at the Golden Moon Casino right now? Is it 8.5?
I think it is 8.5, but will you look and see if you can find one, Jackson, even if it's Vegas? I'll take that. And
it could be multiple places. I always look for whole numbers.
Yeah.
Right, because Ole Miss at 8, that means 7 has
8.5.
You.
Okay.
8.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh. I don't know if you can go over. Okay.
Right, but can you go under too?
I know.
Right. So what's our September schedule? So we got. Oh no, you got an August game.
Yeah.
You're 5 games in before the end of September. Okay.
Yeah. So Georgia State's a W, at Kentucky, Arkansas at home, Tulane at home, LSU at home.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with Georgia State should be an automatic W.
Sure.
And I mean, realistically, Kentucky should be an automatic W too. Now I know that everybody just, if you heard that, you're like, dude, they beat them in Oxford last year. I know, and blind squirrels find nuts. Things happen. That's why we play the games, right? But with Kentucky, lesser talent, head coach advantage to Ole Miss, OC to Ole Miss, DC to Ole Miss, even though I'd say Brad White and Pete Golding are 2 of the top 20, top 15 in the country.
Nice.
So, slight, you get maybe a little bit of home field here. And there might be some trap game element to it. But I think that might be washed out by the attention that Kentucky's going to get because all the fans are going to be focused on wanting to win that game and quote unquote revenging last year, and like I'm sorry, Ole Miss it doesn't matter if you beat Kentucky 55-0 at halftime. You cannot revenge getting knocked out of the playoffs at home by Kentucky.
No.
That's gone. Never coming back. Right.
No.
So there is no. People will say it's a revenge game. There's no revenge because there's nothing you can do to make up for last year's failure.
Oh.
So 2-0, and then you get to come home against Arkansas again. You're at home with better talent and a better coaching staff. Now, you and I both know, though, that with Arkansas, you still got Petrino calling plays. That's really solid, always dangerous, but I just don't think this is going to be where they lose football game.
Right.
Now, I'm intrigued. On September 20th, you get Tulane, and I know physically, talent-wise, there's a massive gap there. But I do believe that when you play Tulane, you're playing a head coach that Ole Miss is going to see again in the SEC. I think this is the next man up.
Right.
I think North Carolina is going to regret falling for the Bill Belichick pitch. Nobody else did. He pitched it all over college football, and North Carolina bit on it. And I think they're going to regret not taking John Summerall. I think he's the best risk out there for the group of 6 coaches. He obviously has connectivity in the Southeast, which makes him SEC eligible. When you get down to the hot seat discussion in the SEC, to replace whoever is leaving, I would have John Summerall at the top of the list.
So could be Pittman, Freeze, Levy,
Stoops.
And who?
Stoops.
Stoops, yeah. He's a Kentucky guy.
What if they fire Brian Kelly and bring Summerall straight in?
Ooh, that's a lot of money.
Ooh.
And Venables could also – we just had an Oklahoma guy, and this blows me away because Castiglione and Barnhart loaded the boat on Venables and Stoops when they didn't have to, but both will have to pay, I think, around $40 million and Brian Kelly's, I think, $50 million. But those three are massive buyouts. But you're right; they could get in some trouble.
Well, something, and we didn't see a whole lot of coaching turnover this last year, and I think a lot of it was correlated to the House settlement not coming in, not knowing where money is going, not knowing where the budget is. As much as fans think these schools have unlimited money, in some cases they kind of do, but that used to be unlimited money for different things.
Right.
And now it has to be reallocated, and maybe paying that $20, $30, $40, $50 million buyout was highly feasible 5-10 years ago. Today it's entirely different and a much more difficult ball game. And I think that's what you saw with a lot of coaching continuity, which I think is a good byproduct. I like continuity, and the ability to keep things together. It's just that if it's a bad coaching staff, the fans don't want that continuity. So
right.
You get Tulane. So I think Tulane's kind of a semi-dangerous game for Ole Miss simply because it's at home. That's a great place to let your guard down, and you have LSU coming in the next week.
Right.
You had Arkansas the week before. So if there was a letdown game in September, I would circle Tulane because of the quality of coaching that Summerall can put out there, and because it's sandwiched between Arkansas and LSU. But you and I got to agree, though. I would say, first 4 games, you're 4-0. You just are. Yeah. And maybe it's 3.5. You kind of hedge it a little bit, but I just don't. Even though Ole Miss lost so much, you're still talking a top 20 high school recruiter. You're still bringing in good talent, not like the opportunity you had in the last 3 or 4 years, but still pretty solid talent. So yeah, we'll just start 4-0. It's the next 4 that are going to make and break this 8.5, right?
Absolutely. So LSU, Washington State, at Georgia, at Oklahoma.
Whew. God, that's beautiful. But that's the toughest part of it. We should throw in there too is in between LSU and Washington State, folks, there is a bye. So they're going to be playing Washington State in Oxford, coming off of a bye that week. So LSU at home, man, I'm on the fence on this one because, Ole Miss has a better OC. Ole Miss has a better DC. Ole Miss is at home. But there's that LSU talent. All right, I'm gonna go for a loss on this one. This is where it catches up to them. So I'm gonna go 4-1. I'm gonna give Brian Kelly the win on the road at Oxford. I'm more 50-50 on it. I'll be at 4.5 after 5 games, but there's just so many advantages for Ole Miss at home and with the coaching. But I just think the talent gap there, and this also might be the difference of LSU having a veteran quarterback coming back versus Ole Miss having Simmons basically in his 5th, 6th game. Huge game at home. They don't have the time. I'm sure they're going to try to push that to a night game. That'd be an awesome football game.
No doubt.
In the season. Yeah. So, but I'll take LSU. I know you'll take Ole Miss at home and Lane, but I think that's where their first loss is going to pop up heading into the stretch. Then you got Washington State at home after a bye. That's a W. And I don't think it's going to be a difficult W. I think that's going to be a pretty easy one there.
Agree.
Georgia on the road, let's just call that a loss. Right? Talent-wise, underdog on talent on the road. Coaching staff, I think you can really split a lot of hairs in that. But ultimately, Georgia has the best overall coach in Kirby Smart. But the entire staff as a whole, I think they all stack up pretty darn good to each other. So we're at, what are we at, 5.5 wins because we're going to lose at Georgia. Oh, Norman, Oklahoma.
Hello.
I don't trust Brett Venables because, like I said, that first year, his coach effect was so bad. That's usually a very, very, very strong indicator he's not going to make it 4 years. Mm-hmm. I know they're bringing in a veteran quarterback, and they brought his offensive coordinator in.
That's true.
And everybody's really high on Ben Arbuckle. And and by the numbers, he is a good offensive coordinator. But his profile is nearly exactly the same as Seth Luttrell, who Oklahoma just fired.
Wow.
It's like Venables is trying to do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
Oh, wow.
He might get a different result because of the quarterback pairing with the offensive coordinator. But the thing with Luttrell and with Arbuckle, they are very, very pass-oriented. And by the numbers, I believe to be successful, especially at the higher levels, Big Ten, SEC, NFL, you have to have a very, very strong run game. I do believe that. The numbers really back that up. And Arbuckle and Luttrell both are not strong run game OCs. So with this one, you got a better staff. We got pretty even talent. It's at Oklahoma. I think with the books at 8.5, they're giving Ole Miss the loss here, and I don't disagree. I think this is another 50-50 ball game along with LSU, but it's in Norman. I'll give the half win here, so I'm at 6 wins total, but I lean Oklahoma winning this football game.
All right,
and so that puts us at.
Hang on, Bartoo. Dave Bartoo on the Out of Bounds show talking. We're previewing Ole Miss, and we're about midway through the season, and we're walking through the schedule. We're in October now, and this is Kiffin's 6th year, and we'll see what plays out. We just hit the Oklahoma game, Ole Miss at Oklahoma.
Wolves, Mountain Lions, and Bears.
All right, let's go with South Carolina at home. Bartoo.
South Carolina at home, but how about Lane Kiffin? Little sidebar: Lane Kiffin, 6 years. Who expected that? He's never been anywhere like more than 3 up until this point in his career. What a turnaround. I could do like a half-an-hour segment just talking about Kiffin's career on paper and how he is probably the greatest head coaching turnaround anomaly in the last 25 years. In fact, I got a challenge for your listeners, Bo. Can anybody, you can text me names of guys you think had a bigger career turnaround from bad to good or good to bad, text me 971-217-8419. Text me one guy that has turned it around positively or negatively more than Lane Kiffin in the last 25 years.
It's just remarkable. It's remarkable.
It's uncanny. It's unbelievable. I think if I got 10 minutes to sit down with Lane and got to ask questions about something, I would try to figure out what flipped the switch. What did it? What or what series of events flipped the switch to turn from pre-FAU Lane to current Lane Kiffin? I
think getting fired on the tarmac at his dream job at Southern Cal started to change the game. And the embarrassment, he was totally embarrassed. He's talked about it. And then getting the rehab tour with Saban. And then, like you said, by the time he got to FAU, he was really starting to hit his stride and get his act together. And now he's been nothing short of amazing in Oxford.
Yeah, it is. And maybe that's it. But nobody's been able to do it like that before.
Right.
We've seen a lot of guys be really bad and not go good. We've seen flashes of good. We've seen Ed Orgeron go from Ole Miss being one of the worst in the country to somehow miraculously, inexplicably, I'll never be able to figure out why, got a ring at LSU.
Yeah, but top 3 talent at that point.
But it wasn't sustainable.
No.
Lane's been there 6 years. I mean, he's been doing this almost a decade.
Yeah.
Fascinating, Jimmy. Just fast. I don't know. The guy just intrigues the heck out of me. Maybe one day I'll be able to get to talk to him. So the last 4 for Ole Miss, and look, it's 3. You get 3 in a row at Oxford, right? You get South Carolina at home. Now I think with South Carolina, they still got Clayton White, solid DC. They got Shula, who they went next man up. And I didn't realize this when Dowell Logains took the job, and what kind of drugs was an AD on to go, Dowell Logains is going to be my next head coach. I want those drugs. But Shula was the quarterback coach for Lenora Sellers. Now, Lenore's, I was just at Lenore's high school a couple weeks ago, and it cracked me up because I'm like, this is like not even an hour out of Columbia, and this is considered an area that's hard to recruit. But Lenore's was kind of quote unquote hidden, but Shula was his quarterback coach all last year. And if you look at Dowell's history in the NFL, he's a bottom 10 offensive coordinator. Shula is a top 20. So I think South Carolina actually upgraded. I think it's all Lenora Sellers, though. I know Lagway gets the lion's share of the attention. Sellers might be the best quarterback in the SEC relative to the talent and the coaching around him.
Oh.
But I'll still take Ole Miss at home. Coaching wise, I lean Ole Miss. You got home field. You got a little bit better talent. But as you and I both know, one great quarterback can elevate a team.
Yeah, I mean, Lenore Sellers could run for 20-something yards late in the game, win it for South Carolina, or Austin Simmons he's super athletic, could do the same for Ole Miss, but I like the Ole Miss lean for sure. All right, then they beat the Citadel. Now, here we go. Florida at home.
Florida at home. I still got to go with Ole Miss in this one. I do. I mean, so we got, and it's 50. We got 4 50-50s, dude. We got LSU at home. We got South Carolina at home. We got Florida at home. This is why I love the schedule. I mean, I think it's a better schedule than last year for them.
Wow.
So you got those 3 at home, and then you got Oklahoma, right? And so, do they go 2-2 and split those? That's a 9-3 season because we're taking Ole Miss to win on the road or at home against State.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we're just going to do that.
Yes.
Right. We got better talent. We got a better coaching. Right. So this season to me comes down to those 4 games. If they go 2-2, you're looking at 10-2, 9-3. If they go 1-3, now you're at 9-3, 8-4 with an upset in there. And so getting back to the betting on this, I can't bet 8.5. I can't, right? Because I can see the feasibility of 9 as easily as I can see the feasibility of 8. I think you got to take one game away for a new quarterback. He's just going to cost you a football game.
Yeah.
Okay. But that might be 9-3. Does
Ooh.
he cost you 2? That's 8-4. I would love to be at 8. Okay. So this is what I'm hunting for out there in the interwebs. If I can get Ole Miss at 8 games, then I'm betting over. Because now they got to go 7-5. They have to be 3 games under TLC, the talent, location, coaching numbers. Right? We just went through that. So
right.
This has 10-2 potential. Even coach effect is going to put them at 9-3. So 0 coach effect, 9-3.
All right.
So going -2 games coach effect is 7-5. Lane hasn't done that at Ole Miss. He's had 1 game under, but he's never had 2. So my favorite number to bet, if I have to bet Ole Miss, I'm hunting for that 8. I got to stay off that 8.5 because there's just too many 50-50 games here with a new quarterback.
Yeah.
Now most of those games are later in the season, but I'm still not making that bet. So if I have to bet, I'm thinking they're going to end up 8-4. That's my feeling on this thing. They should be 9-3. I think they're just going to lose 1 game with a new quarterback.
Okay.
Hot take.
Oh, man. Dave Bartoo. Bartoo's Bangers, brought to you by Pearl River Resort and the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Dancing Rabbit Golf Club.
Ooh, baby.
And we'll do another one next week. Bartoo, that was beautiful. We love you, my man. I hope Oregon, I hope the weather's great. We'll talk next week, okay?
It's gorgeous out here, buddy. Looking forward to it.
Bartoo's Bangers, brought to you by Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Book your next stay and play. Philip M. Steakhouse, table games. Like Bartoo mentioned, they got the win totals up at the sportsbook inside the Golden Moon for college football and NFL. PearlRiverResort.com. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Don't forget, all of our interviews are podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds. Straight ahead, what's the most underrated guy code rule?